there's this tiny sliver of what I call the tech elite, and they infinitely brag about how well their kids are doing away from screens, that they won't fall for this hype. Oh, that's what kids do today. They say, I'm protecting my kids from screens, and look how well my kids have done. And then there's almost like everyone else that isn't privy to that information, and my job is to bring that forward.
This is Virtuous Leaders, the podcast for based Catholics who will speak truth, do good, or die trying. Here's the show. You are a PhD level psychologist, and you got some training at Harvard Medical School. You've spoken about the dangers of screen use at the California State Legislature, and then also similarly to the American Psychological Association. And you've written 2 books about it. My first question is, why do we need to write books about this? Isn't it just so obvious?
It's not. I think we just look at the data, and childhood is disappearing. Like the typical kid has now, by the time that they're a teen, is now left the real world behind to sit before a screen, largely sedentary, for 8 hours, more than 8 hours and 30 minutes every single day. Like, and they've left family behind, they've left school behind, they've left an interest in books behind. They live amidst in darkened rooms talking with strangers rather than connecting with their families. They've been deceived by a lot of the major voices within our country talking about the health effects of kids and technology have aligned oftentimes financially with industry. They essentially act as PR rather than they've betrayed childhood. They've betrayed our families and educators and other healthcare providers they've aligned with industry to sort of bless this movement, because they're oftentimes paid to do so, but they've blessed this movement onto screens. And so kids are suffering. That's what motivates me to write about this and talk with families about it.
Well, at least unlike most issues, rich people and poor people are facing the same struggle here, right?
Yes, and I think we see those who are there's this tiny sliver, as I talk about in Better Than Real Life. There's this tiny sliver of what I call the tech elite, and they infinitely brag about how well their kids are doing away from screens. That they won't fall for this hype that oh, that's what kids do today. They say, I'm protecting my kids from screens, and look how well my kids have done. And then there's almost like sort of everyone else that isn't privy to that information, and my job is to bring that forward. And we see Black and Latino youth really get hammered by this stuff. Well, I was talking about that 8 hours and 30 minutes for the average teenager in the U.S. For Black and Latino youth, it's about 10 hours every single day in front of a sedentary screen. Those kids are suffering more with respect to screen-caused child obesity. So American healthcare needs to step up and recognize that they've been deceived by a lot of people saying, oh, screen time's not really all that important. That's a lie. American healthcare has a responsibility to look at the actual science, saying screen time is a contributor to child obesity and to type 2 diet, and then it's all its consequences of type 2 diabetes, and they need to step up. So because less advantaged families are getting it, but just or getting it worse. But like I would say, unless you are the 0.001% of families, not including my own, that like are able to send their kids to schools that are largely, based around human connection. That's where the kind of rich are sending their kids to school, like to these schools based around, not around screens and instead around the human connection. So there is some, yes, all sort of folks are affected, but there is like this little strata of folks that sort of, at least their kids are more protected than others.
regarding the Black and Latino kids. I've seen that firsthand. I spent a couple summers volunteering in the Bronx. And contrary to popular expectation, what you find is these kids spend all their time at home in front of screens, not roaming around outside, getting in trouble, which might actually be better for them. And it turns them into these weak, flabby, purposeless automatons, which is really sad to see. But you mentioned that, so these top tech executives sending their children to these human-oriented schools. When do you think the earth is going to open up under their feet and swallow them whole?
Like, what do you mean? Like, are they able to sleep at night and knowing what they are doing to other kids while they protect their own?
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I can't live my life like that. And I truly don't know how they can. And then they talk all again, they're just, and they're so out of touch. I think money, that level of money puts you in this, I think it disconnects you from the reality. And when they talk, so many of these people talk like it's tone deaf. It's so out of touch with what everyone else is dealing with. And I don't know. I think there's this cognitive dissonance that, like, I think back in there, they're like, wow, all this money is allowing me to protect my kids and send them to these special schools and provide them these extracurricular activities and purchase get these nannies that are $100K plus a year that are protecting my kids. And that allows me to less consider what's happening to everyone else. Meanwhile, I'm selling myself. I tell my PR agent to tell the world about all the wonderful things I'm doing, myself, and the world gets suckered in by that.
Must be nice not to have a conscience. So your latest book, Better Than Real Life, can you give us the top most important takeaways from that book?
I think it's really two. But like, if I was going to sort of like, took me a long time to write that book, but we are telling families today, oh, play a video game, go socially connect, go watch TV, which is YouTube and TikTok. These are not, they're sold to families as entertainment, but what Silicon Valley knows very well is that it's not entertainment based. It is a science, a manipulative science that kids are logging onto, called persuasive design, that essentially the world has not ever heard about. And my job is and that is a science in which machines are designed to manipulate humans to change their behavior using the highest levels of psychology. So it's a Silicon Valley merger with the highest levels of psychology, neuroscience, AI, to purposely manipulate kids with the idea that we're going to shift childhood. The main goal of it, to shift childhood away from the real world to put it on a screen. And I think the second large big picture innovation is to really bring forward that these people that you're told to trust, the four leading child health organizations in the United States that give you advice about screen time, are industry aligned, and typically industry, or often industry funded. And they essentially act as PR that are just blessing this industry. They've sold out childhood. They've betrayed families. They've betrayed kids. And they're just saying, oh, screen time's not such a problem. They've essentially enabled industry to take childhood for its own. And that's not okay. We need to lead with what science actually tells us our kids need. And that's things like, I know you focus on traditional values and so forth. There is a reason why traditional cultures, since the beginning of time, have emphasized things like family. Whether our kids are teens or preteens or little kids, their number one most important emotional connection should be with family, not online peers and strangers. So it's really sort of really definitely saying, like, let's take a look at the reason why these cultures have long promoted the importance of families because that's what science says works. And that's what's going to help our kids going forward. So I work to bring the science, and, lo and behold, what do you know? These traditional cultures for 1,000+ years are actually right. And what Silicon Valley is selling you as a parent now is a lie.
What are those 4 organizations you mentioned that are betraying our trust?
Number one, the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is really sad to say. The American Academy of Pediatrics is a science-based, really good organization. But in 2016, their media group, the ones that provide media recommendations, essentially became industry aligned. The main person at the American Academy of Pediatrics to give the world advice about kids and screens is Dr. Megan Moreno, whose research has been funded by Facebook, Instagram. You can't do that. That's like having McDonald's and Coca-Cola fund dietary guidelines. A second one is the American Psychological Association. They say they're a health organization saying, oh, social media is not really a problem, but they are also a professional organization working to place psychologists within the social media industry. So they literally can't say, oh, this social media product poses risk, because it would be unethical for psychologists to work there. So that's their industry alignment. A real big one, number 3, is Common Sense Media. This group that parents think of, oh, that's a rating organization. They have changed. They are now primarily a multi-million-dollar ed tech, put screens in schools, tech in schools lobbying group. And they say things like screen time is not really a problem, even though their CEO and founder, Jim Steyer, he brags about how he limited his own kids' screen time. Very much part of the tech elite. And lastly, Michael Rich's digital wellness lab, based out of Children's Hospital. He is I describe him better than real life. His funding sources look like a Las Vegas electronics trade show. Just everyone, or just like all these companies that parents are sort of concerned about, are funding him like Roblox. And then he says, well, screen time's not really a problem. You're getting funded. And a lot of these organizations say we are independent. But apparently they have no recourse, or apparently they must not have a legal department that's awake to realize, when you say we are independent, and when you say things like for the American Academy of Pediatrics, their science-based side will say screen time is a risk factor for obesity. Meantime, the media side says it's not really. That. You are opening yourself up to, do you know what the costs are to treat child obesity and teen obesity in the United States? It's billions and billions of dollars. Apparently, the American Academy of Pediatrics has no legal department that is aware of what they are doing, because they're putting themselves at risk. And that's one thing for them, but they are throwing American children and worldwide, they're throwing kids under the bus and putting them at risk for early disease and early death. It's a mess.
That is so disturbing. I had no idea about the Common Sense Media.
It's a tragedy, and parents don't know this. And, Common Sense Media is brought into schools to educate kids. It essentially acts like a Trojan horse marketing program. We're there to help you. No, they get there, and then their 7th grade program for kids in social media is promoting kids' social media use. And 7th graders are oftentimes 12 years old. They're actually they're not legally allowed to be on most social media sites. That is a sham of an organization that is essentially their economic model is to put kids before screens. Meanwhile, they're saying they're an independent body. Again, they must not have a legal department that's awake, or they really care.
Just when you think it can't get any worse. I thought I was as black-pilled as you can be, and you keep getting these little surprises. And then you said that. So is it true that some of the most effectively trained psychologists are using their training to get kids more addicted through persuasive design.
Yes, you see that in the video game and social media industry that um like why in God's name are psychologists employed by industry? What? Well, because their primary job is to secretly, oftentimes, manipulate behavior, and to see how like social media has been turned into what I call a supernormal technology. Supernormal stimuli was invented by or discovered by Nicholas Hinberg, and a Dutch biologist who won the Nobel Prize for it. But like, oh, sold to you as we're selling social media to you. Is that's a place where your kids connect? No, it's a scientific experiment on kids where you turn it in a supernormal stimuli as you take you hype it up, you jack it up, it becomes artificial, and it does two things. It creates an addictive response, and it displaces real world engagement. So we see that with social media. Some of the early experiments where you take these little songbirds and you paint these giant eggs day glow blue and put polka dots on them. These little songbirds will ignore their real eggs, let them die, to like hop on these giant plastic eggs because it's going right at their genes. So especially for our girls who are really have an innate ability to socially connect, industry is going to exploit that by creating a supernormal stimuli. They're going to quantify those social connections. They're going to put numbers on likes and followers and photo tags, and they're going to gamify that. It becomes a contest of who can do that. And if you don't have the appropriate number of likes and followers and photo tags and so forth, you are ridiculed by your peers. It is a toxic environment, but purposefully created. And psychologists are brought into the social media industry to all make that work much better, to create a product that is much better at pulling kids away from vital real world to live sedentary on screens. It's profoundly unethical what the American Psychological Association is doing. It makes me sick. I've led a national campaign to have the APA address this. I compare it to the last scene of the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, how did they respond? The last scene of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, they're wheeling the Ark of the Covenant into this labyrinthian warehouse, never to be seen again, and they just essentially buried this national campaign that was in the New York Times and lots of other places. But the APA just essentially like said, "Oh, we're going to push that off to a committee." They've turned their back on kids. It's troubling. It's sickening. It's just really, we're in a really toxic environment right now where healthcare is aiding and abetting Silicon Valley's exploitation of kids.
Any highlights you want to point out for your previous book, Wired Child?
Wired Child is really talking about the myths that are putting our kids before screens. Industry is really selling us on these beliefs that, for example, video games develop your kids' self-control. The research shows the opposite. When your kids, like, what that research shows is like, if your kid's on a video game, they'll play a video game longer. But like the real research, if kids spend a lot of time on a video games, they're not going to perform as well in school, like where they need the real self-control. Or another one is as our kids transition from being a child to a preteen to a teen, you'll hear so many parents today be convinced of the lie that my kid needs their peers the most. And today they're found online in this environment. So I need to turn my kid loose to this back room where they predictably get sad and depressed, and a generation of girls cut and become suicidal. Yes, because of some of the content that's there, greatly because of they are leaving behind the families, the parents, the extended family, the siblings that love them and have their love, have their unconditional love, where kids then go chase this conditional love of peers. It's again, that's a really, there's lots of myths that industry has, again, sort of had their minions, their handmaidens, that claim that they're health bodies, convince the world that this is what you're supposed to do. So we've had this giant transition since the early 2000s of blessing this world that kids live before screens, and you'll see it from experts, and unfortunately a lot of healthcare providers have been duped by that too. I'll have pediatricians after a talk I'll do, say, oh, but what about this? And they will be referencing Common Sense Media, not understanding that Common Sense Media takes millions of dollars from industry, and their job is to put kids before screens. It's even our health experts don't know the truth today.
I've been speaking on this topic for several years, including nationally. And what I've come to realize, this is my hypothesis, and I want to test it with you, is that most parents are not even capable of doing what is good for their kids by not giving them smartphones, social media, video games, because most adults are just children in adult bodies, and they don't themselves have the self-control and maturity and the emotional regulation that moms are anxious, dads are weak, and it's like they're not even capable of doing what's right for their kids. You've spoken about this topic as well. What's your impression?
I would go more with, I don't think this should be put singularly on parents, because if it is on parents, the only ones that are going to be able to do that, and I don't know, is persuasive design, this manipulative science, incorporates more AI, and we have the world's most powerful computers that take buildings and weigh hundreds and thousands of tons, go after kids. I don't even think this tech elite group are going to be able to protect their kids. So I think to me, it's like smoking. I think all these I think it can't be just put on parents. To me, just like we realize, we can't just have parents protect their kids from smoking cigarettes. It needs to be schools. It needs to be government. So you see states now taking action, and countries saying, we want to push back the age when kids get social media. To me, that's what needs to happen. Parents need support. Today, parents are working more and more and more hours, and then they're sold this delicious, easy message that what your kid needs most is a screen. They're being lied to by the American Academy of Pediatrics and Common Sense Media, these big giant voices. So I think parents are being duped. I think we need to shut those lies down, and we need to provide all parents, not just this small sliver of tech elite, real information.
You've spoken widely on this topic. What advice do you have to someone who wants to help parents, wants to help people by speaking on this topic? How do you, getting appointments set up and that sort of thing?
I think the power of coming together as a community. We've lived in these small communities for forever, and if some group tried to of interlopers tried to move in on your kids and your tribe, they'd be lucky to be run off. Good luck to them. Today we need to wake up to realize there are these powerful groups that are working to exploit kids, and the way to do that is the way we can protect kids is to really come together in groups and faith-based communities and other places where we're not gonna follow this Silicon Valley model, and we know actually that the people at the very top of it are protecting their kids. We're going to follow that path. We're going to work together to protect our kids. We're going to make a community to protect our kids. We're going to do things like push back the age when kids get smartphones, which is happening earlier and earlier, and wreaking havoc on our kids physically, emotionally, academically. We're going to say No, in our group, like I don't understand why. I think I would like to see more action from faith-based communities and other community groups to say, like, no, but I think they've been co-opted or taken in by this really powerful, what I call the Silicon Valley propaganda machine, this giant set of industry-funded lies. So I would like, um, and then is you were asking, like, let's look to science. I know Melanie Hempy at Screen Strong. Like, let's go there. And their organization is they're not taking money from big tech, and they are science based, and they're working hard to bring that information forward. Like, let's go to them and see what they what they say is really helpful. They have a community there where parents can come together from around the nation and say, how can we take action to protect our kids and push back, do things like push back the age when kids get smartphones and start playing video games and things of that sort.
Last question. Where are you getting your motivation from? Is it faith or where's it coming from?
Really good question. I am a psychologist in clinical practice. Um, and I work in my community has a lot of working class families, everyday hardworking, amazing families. They're the ones who are really, really getting hurt by this. And so I see them every day in my clinical practice saying, why is my son putting a fist through a wall when I ask him to, he's failing every single one of his classes. I've tried to limit his video games. Why did he put a fist through the wall? Why did I need to call the police? Because he's 200 pounds and my 17-year-old pushed me. Like, they don't know why this is happening. Why did I lose my kid? Like, so that to see that, and then to see what I call the tech elite tout how their kids are thriving emotionally and academically because they have not fallen for this Silicon Valley line to put kids before screens. To see that disconnect is driven me to write and to bring this message forward.
I actually worked with someone exactly like you described, and I had no idea how to help this person.
It's really tough. I mean, what we really want to do is if we're talking about families where kids, when we have, whenever there's a medical situation and it's pervasive and we have a country of kids suffering from child obesity, we shouldn't focus primarily on treatment. Yes, if kids are having a problem, what we need to do is primary prevention. And the American Academy of Pediatrics is just completely given up on that, completely been taken in by their media group, which forgets about prevention. It's tragic. So that we're going to say the media group in the American Academy of Pediatrics says screen time is not really a problem. Meanwhile, the offices of pediatricians are filling up with kids that are suffering and are likely to experience early death, and they're experiencing type 2 diabetes because they are living on a screen, being shoved marketing to watch stuff, and they aren't moving out of their beds because the media group has said screen time isn't really a problem. Like, you can't do that kind of stuff. So these kind of things, just to see what my families that I work with and the families around the world not being told the truth and truly being lied to their face, that like drives me to do this. And so we really need to focus on prevention, because once it's really hard to treat a kid once they're game addicted. We can send them to centers, we can send them to places like that, or if when we try to take a girl's smartphone away and she cuts up her arms, like, that's happening around the country. Why don't we understand that smartphone and social media was what led to this problem in the first place, and let's push back the age when kids get that.
This was an excellent conversation, Dr. Freed. Any last words for us?
Really appreciate you being on here. It's really nice talking with you, and it sounds like you understand so much of what is happening. And I'm thank you very much for bringing this message forward. And also seems like you're very much working, talk with others who are then going to disseminate this message out there further. And I think that's this grassroots. What are we doing in our community? Like, I think that's where things are really going to move.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. See you next time.